We all know how important firewalls are, right? I
Yeah,
mean, they're like the first line of defense in cybersecurity,
absolutely. Yeah.
keeping those bad guys out of our networks. You could think of them like the guards at the gate of a digital castle or something.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
But
The walls.
yeah,
They're
exactly.
going to have cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens when the guards themselves, the firewall itself, has some weaknesses?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at today, diving deep into
Oh.
a recent security advisory from Sonicwall. And uh, this is kind of raising some eyebrows, let me tell you.
Yeah.
They found some vulnerabilities in their SonicOS, which is, the operating system that runs on their firewalls.
Right.
And so this could actually affect anyone who's using these firewalls,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of people.
It is, yeah. It's pretty widely used.
Yeah, it's not just some small little niche tech issue here. We're talking about Gen 6 and Gen 7 firewalls. So that's a huge range of users who could be at risk. And to make matters worse, they didn't just find one or two vulnerabilities. They found FUR.
Oh, wow.
So that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
Really?
What exactly are we dealing with here? Why are these vulnerabilities such a big deal? What makes them so concerning?
Well, the interesting thing here is that each of these vulnerabilities targets a different part of the firewall's security.
Oh, so like
Yeah.
different weak points.
Attackers are probing different parts of the defenses. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So two of them are related to the SSLVPN, which I'm sure, a lot of people use for remote access these days.
Right.
One of those, CVE 2024-40762, it involves predictable authentication tokens. So it's almost like having a lock where the key changes every time,
Okay.
but the pattern of the changes is so predictable
So you can figure it out.
that somebody could figure it out without too much effort.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about having a strong password. It's about the system that creates those passwords being secure in the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
What about the second SSLVPN vulnerability? CVE 2024-53704. Improper authentication. That's what the advisory says. How is that different from the first one?
So you can think of it this way. The first one we talked about that exploits a weakness in the key itself, this one targets the lock.
Oh, I see.
So an attacker could potentially bypass the authentication process altogether,
Sneak right in.
sneak right in without even having the right credentials. So it shows how security is really a system of multiple layers.
Right.
And if just one of those layers has a flaw, it can compromise the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a little unsettling to think that something like improper authentication could even exist in a system like this that's built for security.
Right, exactly.
But okay, moving on, we also have CVE 2024-53705, server-side request forgery. This one, I got to admit, this one took me a while to wrap my head around. It sounds like the attacker is basically tricking the firewall into doing their dirty work for them.
You got it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It uses the firewall's own authority against
Oh,
it.
wow.
So imagine an attacker creating a malicious request, but it's disguised to look like it came from the firewall itself.
Oh, sneaky.
And the firewall, because it trusts its own commands,
Right.
might actually execute those commands on other systems within the network.
So they can get in through the back door, basically.
Yeah, get access to data they shouldn't have, or even take control of other devices.
That's scary.
It is.
It's like using the firewall as a puppet to get into the rest of the network. Not good at all. And then we have the last one, CVE 2024-53706. This one feels kind of the most serious, I don't know why, privilege escalation, they call it, and specifically in the Gen 7 NSV cloud platform.
Right.
So what happens if an attacker manages to get that level of access? What does it actually mean?
Well, think about it this way. Gaining root privileges is like getting the master key to the entire network.
Oh, wow.
So they basically become the administrator, you
They
know?
can do anything they want.
Unrestricted access, change settings, steal data, maybe even just cause chaos on the whole system.
All right, so that's a pretty good rundown of all the vulnerabilities. Now, what can people actually do about it? Sonicwall, of course, they're saying everybody needs to upgrade to the latest versions.
Right.
And they even list specific versions for each product.
Yeah.
Like 6.5.5.1 6 or higher for Gen 6, 7.1.3 701 or higher for Gen 7, 7.15165 for the Gen 7 NSV. And then for the TZ80, 8.0.08037 or higher. But I'm guessing it's not quite as simple as just clicking the update button, right? There's more to it than that.
Yeah, for sure. These upgrades include patches, and they're specifically designed to fix these exact vulnerabilities.
Okay.
They close the security gap so attackers can't exploit them anymore,
Yeah.
like patching up the holes in your castle wall.
Right, makes sense. So.
Upgrading, that should be the absolute top priority for everyone.
Makes sense. But let's be real. Sometimes upgrades can't happen immediately. There's testing that needs to be done. You need to schedule downtime, things like that. So what about the meantime? Sonicwall also suggests some workarounds, things like limiting access to the SSL VPN and the SSH management interfaces.
Right.
So how does that help?
Limiting access is really important, especially if you can't patch right away. It's all about minimizing the attack surface,
Okay.
making it harder for the attackers to find a way in. So you could restrict access to only trusted IP addresses.
Oh, okay.
Or even just completely disable access from the public internet.
So even tighter security, even more guards at the gate.
Exactly. Buy yourself some time while you get those permanent fixes in place.
Right. But Sonicwall is pretty clear that these workarounds are not a substitute for actually upgrading.
Oh, definitely not, no. Workarounds just give you a temporary layer of protection,
Right.
but they don't actually solve the root problem.
Right. They don't fix the vulnerabilities.
You got to upgrade to the patched version to really be secure.
Now, one thing Sonicwall mentions in the advisory is that there's no evidence that these vulnerabilities are actually being exploited yet, at least not that they know of.
Right.
Does that mean people can just relax? Can they just breathe easy?
Probably not a good idea to relax just yet. I mean, it's great that they haven't seen any exploitation yet, but this information is public now.
Right.
And cybercriminals, they're always looking for new vulnerabilities.
So they could be working on it as we speak.
Exactly. This disclosure could be like the starting gun for them to go after systems that haven't been patched.
So it's a race against time, right?
Yeah.
The longer you wait to patch, the higher the chances that somebody out there is trying to exploit these vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this has been a pretty interesting look, a little bit scary look at why it's so important to stay on top of security updates, even for devices like firewalls that we tend to think of as being inherently secure,
It really does show how cybersecurity is an ongoing process. You can't just set it and forget it. You always have to be paying attention.
Always got to be vigilant.
This deep dive, it kind of raises a big question for all of us. How often do we actually check for updates? Not just for our computers and phones, but for all the devices on our networks, all the things that protect our data. It's something to think about, especially as the threat landscape keeps changing and evolving all the time.
Yeah, definitely something to think about. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And as always, stay safe out there
Thanks for having me.
and keep those firewalls updated. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.